Hello and welcome to Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Lauren Zayu. Join me as we navigate the political communications, ups and downs, and ins and outs of our day. We're talking to leading experts on the issues that help our country move forward for the better. My guests and I promise to give you the history, the real, and the ideal. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Lauren Zayu. Last month, the Commonwealth of Virginia held its first statewide election under the Biden administration. The night did not go well for the Virginia Democratic Party as they lost the seats for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and along with some prominent delegates. I worked for 3 years in Virginia politics and brought in former colleague of mine, Matt Rogers, to discuss what happened in Virginia on election night. This conversation also happened on the day of the Rittenhouse verdict, so we talk about that some as well. In addition to being a new dad and chief strategist of Politidope Incorporated, Matt is a passionate professional with close to a decade of experience working with local, state, and federal elected officials, as well as caucuses, campaigns, and nonprofit organizations. I'm excited to welcome to Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered, Matt Rogers.
Hi, how's it going?
Matt.
Hey.
How are you today?
And you're Lauren Zayu now. You had a different name when we worked together. What was your name? I was thinking about that as I was getting on. I was like, I can't. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
No problem. You say Lauren Zayu, I am. But if we want to kind of start with you and a bit of your background.
Oh yeah. So I currently chief of staff for chair at large, Loudoun County, Phyllis Randall. I started in my political career in 2012 working on Tim Kaine's campaign. Before then, I was just at that time I was by the way, finance intern making random $5 calls. You know, that's what that means to random people you never heard of. Before then, I was just a pastor's kid, like living in Richmond. Really was just enjoying finding a major. Changed majors a couple times. Ended up in college finishing with 2 minors because I kind of found the track that I was looking for. But I was really somebody who was trying to like learn about the world because coming up, I'm a biracial guy. So my dad is a black dude from West Philly. My mom's a white woman from Western Pennsylvania. So culturally, religiously, like I got to see a lot in terms of culture, but like religiously and morally and things like that. When I went to college, I had to like really kind of come to and become, you know, somebody because really being pushed. I don't know if other preachers' kids, when I do talk to them, they say this, is that they had the same kind of thing, is because they have such a moral center that has been defined for you that when you go and find yourself, you have to kind of refine a center. And so it kind of all informs who I am now. And as soon as I got into politics, I realized like I loved it. I was like in that office way more than I planned to for just my internship. I ran for college Democrats leadership. I was like doing their Facebook and stuff before everybody realized that you needed, as a political organization or as a candidate, that you needed a Facebook. I was doing it for Ralph Northam for lieutenant governor many years ago. Yeah, when he was the underdog in that race. That was a lot of fun. But now I've been a candidate myself. I have, you know, around 50-something thousand on a given day Twitter followers, and but my background is what I feel at this point in my life, I get to be more free in who I want to be in terms of political, because now, having been a former candidate, somebody who has, you know, been in that jungle, you don't feel the constraints to actually try to look forward to trying to make things perfect and trying to do things a certain way so that you can appeal to people. As a candidate, you start realizing at a certain point, like, not who you think you are, but how the world views you. And I think there's something beautiful in that, whether you win or whether you lose. So I got into a lot of there. I'm sorry. I got
no problem. I was gonna say though. So I mean, election night 2017, right? Was huge for Virginia Democrats. It felt like a rebuke to Trumpism. Took every statewide office. 2019, they get a supermajority in the state legislature and are able to do some cool things. I know you, at the time, were a chief of staff to a state senator, I believe, there. And so, yeah, that legislation cycle was crazy. All of that happened. And then we end up with the 2021 Virginia elections, which coming off the 2020 presidential, I think that the phrase that then candidate Fairfax was using was something to the effect of like, Virginia is the progressive match that's going to light a fire of change around the world, something like that. And then it seemed like we were on track to do that. And then 2020 comes and, there's a conversation about Virginia and the presidential kind of always being a back and forth of sorts. But even starting with the Democratic primary, like there was a lot of excitement around the level of diversity in the candidates, but we still ended up with a former governor for the ticket. So can you kind of talk about what that was like being there?
Yeah, I think so. My perspective on it, as you alluded to, I was privileged enough to, for a time, to work in the state Senate, and so before we won the majority in 2017, I was working actually with Charnel Herring, delegate Charnel Herring, and so being present to all those conversations about, oh my gosh, actually, Hillary Clinton won enough of these districts. So if we just on track, we win those districts, we could take the majority. And it was dismissed as kind of, fan fiction. And the Women's March and all that was kind of, okay, that's cute, but can that translate electorally?
Right.
And so being part of all those conversations, you could kind of see how it led up to the nomination of the individual that we ended up as the Democratic Party of Virginia nominating, because while what pushed Democrats over the top over the last few years was some good ideas and more diverse faces, not exactly ideal, but more diverse than what it had been. At the same time, the power center fundamentally believes that you can only move but so fast at once. And there's a natural friction there between the ascending electorate that Obama and others are able to ignite, the coalition that's able to be ignited, and then the kind of people who are used to the kind of people we need to nominate are more like Bill Clinton 1992, like those kind of Democrats. People think that the best of the Democratic Party is really being able to appeal to the sliver in the middle and not alienate. So the entire election cycle is built around not just what happened in 2021. All of this is being the layers to this cake are being built in 1920, 21, where down in the General Assembly, serious decisions are being made. Great stuff got passed. So, and I never was questioning that. There is a natural disinclination towards going towards big transformative ideas. We didn't touch the tax rate. Our gubernatorial nominee campaigned on, I'm not going to repeal qualified immunity. I'm not going to repeal right to work. And so fundamentally, people who are on the left side of the tent fundamentally feel like, okay, well, you obviously don't feel like you need me. And so I think that's what I think that's the crux of what went wrong this year.
Yeah, I could see that. And it's interesting because, I mean, one, Virginia Democrats is always a true coalition of different entities. And I'm even remembering, when was it? Was that 2019 I think it must have been 2019, that February, where it felt like the state was on fire between like Northam,
Yes.
blackface accusations, lieutenant governor sexual assault accusations. Mark Herring just went ahead and confirmed his blackface, I think, and then like the Speaker of the House did the same thing. It just felt like this moment of like, what's going to happen. And so that was February of 19. And so for them to still do well in the 19 elections, I thought was really promising. And so to again turn it around to have the diverse candidates that were originally slated. I'm thinking, Jennifer Carroll Foy, Jennifer McClellan. The other one's escaping me right now. I'm looking at them. But even
Lieutenant Governor Fairfax, and then you had Lee Carter. Lee Carter was the fifth candidate. Yeah.
And opinions are had about a lot of people, and I think
opinions are had about a lot of people. So
yeah, I mean, well, if we're going to speak plainly, right, and why not? It's my show. I did tell the people I was unfiltered, right?
Yes, you did.
Governor Fairfax had no business jumping in that race.
He's like politically. And we met for the listeners.
We met on that race. Absolutely.
We met on that 17 race. For him to have run this time, he's politically done. He's now in a situation where because these are legitimately serious allegations that have been lodged. Individuals who've lodged allegations, not like I heard him say or he said or he said, I heard somebody. No, me personally have had this. That is a criminal allegation. The authorities should look at that. Now, over some time now, I haven't seen him in any. I heard about any proceedings. He could have spent some time away and like, look, all these years later, all of this, and I got hounded out, and maybe come back to run now. He's shown. What did he get? I don't even know if he got 5%.
No, he didn't, and it's the entire all of the allegations. From as a comms person, he approached them with a level of arrogance that I would just never recommend ever. And I think running was also a sign of arrogance that like, this doesn't matter. I'm going to do my thing. Like, this isn't going to stop me. Versus, again, very credible allegations. And so, and I mean, 2017 was when like the Me Too movement was birthed and born, right? And so as someone who worked with him through that entire thing, none of this came out during that. But we saw in real time what it looks like to let these allegations ruin your life.
Yeah.
And he effectively took that as a personal challenge and was like, bet. Like, I mean, he has not handled anything well at all. And so I wasn't surprised to see, I was most surprised to see that he ran. I wasn't surprised to see that he didn't do well, because who wouldn't have seen that coming? And so I do think that on the lieutenant governor ticket, though, there was Ala Ayala. Also, I believe Elizabeth Guzman ran along with Sean Perriman.
Sam Rasool.
Yeah, a lot of Black and brown and marginalized faces. And so to not end up doing as well, even Mark Herring, I thought, running for AG again. He was coming in as a third time reelected, and that didn't happen. And so in the belief of incumbent power, like, this is moving as a ticket, there appeared to be a response to what was going on. And so one question I was going to have for you, though, is if there was any polling done on what took voters to the polls in the primary, and if that had changed by the general.
Well, so the Republicans didn't get to have a primary, so they had a convention, so they set it up so Glenn Youngkin could skate, just talk to his crowds, and we find out later that he's getting very Trumpy, but we don't know in real time. And so because Virginia has an open primary system, I don't like the idea that one party does it one way, the other party does it the other way, because what can happen then, as far as I understand, is that they could then go vote they could have gone and voted for Terry. Now, Terry won 62% in a 5-way race. So that's a decision that the party faithful are making. And I think that's a fundamental mistake that I think in 2020, the forces that were at play in 2020, the very like fatalistic, like, are we going to have a United States of America kind of moment was at play in that election. So will I go and vote for Joe? There's no question. I knew people who were way far of center, who are like, who would never in 2016 wouldn't be caught dead, like even hanging out with somebody who liked Hillary, who went and voted for Joe Biden.
Right.
Glenn Youngkin, it's not the fate of the Republic, and it was hard to drum that up. So what you have to do is counterbalance that with some really ambitious Yes, McAuliffe would have moved the ball forward, but there's nothing that's like a home run. Like if Terry ended up being governor, was there anything that people went to the polls on election day and said, this alone would change my life? No. It's because there's an assumption within the party faithful that slow and steady wins the race. What we need to do is just not screw it up. Don't scare away Republicans. What we're doing is too many times, not always, but too often, is allowing that fear of turning out Republican voters turn into us telling our own voters, don't vote for us. Because I know a lot of people, who care a lot about qualified immunity, that would have been a vote in of itself. You can't, like, there are areas where the party did very poorly in this election. You're talking about, like, in Petersburg, we lost a delegate in Petersburg. That means that in these very black and brown communities.
Not hearing. I'm sorry. Was that aired?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't intend to say names, but we lost a delegate in Petersburg. And I've been to Petersburg. And a lot of people who are listening to this show have been to Petersburg. That's where Virginia State is, Virginia State University. There are people who just said, I'm not turning out today. And that is a conundrum for the Democratic Party of Virginia. I think on the issues, people agree with us, and we have to stop acting like that's not true. And they're going to be able to get people scared up. Certain people scared up. We have to get our people ready to vote. And it's not just black people. It's progressive white people. It's people who've never even cared about stuff, but were willing to go and vote for Bernie because they thought Bernie in the 2016 race was going to change their lives. I mean, that's what it is. Yeah.
I think Democrats like to play this game with Republicans where they say we're not that different. And ironically, Republicans never hear them on that, but Democrats do and decide to stay home because we're not that different. And so it's frustrating.
Like one of the last, I live in Northern Virginia. So McCall should have targeted his ad. I live in Arlington, Virginia. This district, the House district I live in, went for McAuliffe by 78 points. He did a TV ad in Northern Virginia during football. So he's talking about, I'm not going to be a Democratic governor or a Republican governor. To somebody who just got fired up last year on Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
What do you say? Thanks for telling me I don't need to make plans on November 2nd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not me, but others.
Are you, out of curiosity though, like as we transition into Hold Up, what are some things you thought were missing from the conversation, either in like the national media when they covered the race or just all throughout during the election?
They never really pressed Republicans. The press, responsible press, and Democrats should have never, ever, like a pit bull bite, should have never allowed Republicans to start throwing out that word CRT and have the year before it was defund the police. The year before that, it's whatever. A few years ago, it was Obamacare, even though people liked the programs that were enabled by Obamacare. So we have to stop letting that team throw out words that mean things to their people. It does mean something. They care about it. It gets them fired up and they don't want it. And Democrats are doing it. And what Democrats do is say, oh, no, we're not doing that. We agree that that's a horrible idea. We would never, ever teach people about race. We would never, ever, make sure that we're not spending the bulk of our local tax dollars on militarizing our local police force like we live in, Baghdad or something. Yeah. So we always shy away. And then people who would be turned on to being interested, we have to give people real solutions. We should have talked about taxes. We should have talked about the fact that in 2007, we gave back to people who were going to inherit $5 million estates. We gave them $170 million a year, or close to $200 million. That's a policy decision. Democrats agree, Republicans disagree. We were the ones who legalized weed. Now, I don't think we did it fast enough, and I don't think we did it exactly right, but we did it, and it should have been front and center. We should have said we were going to repeal qualified immunity. We should have said we were going to repeal right to work. There were things that were missing from this, and I tried to highlight it early on, and I'm not bitter about it. I think people like candidates and don't like candidates. That's fine. I was trying to put out some ideas that people should, and Mr. Youngkin liked my grocery tax idea because I hadn't heard any Virginia candidates talking about repealing the grocery tax. Now, I had a way to pay for it, but he didn't say how he's going to pay, but it's an idea. It's something that people like, oh yeah, do I want to stop paying tax for groceries? Sure.
Right. No, I mean, that's reasonable. And so just so we're all on the same page, can you explain what qualified immunity is?
Qualified immunity is case law that allows officers or other civil servants to not be sued in court if they violate somebody's civil liberties. So for instance, if an officer's mistaken, kicks in your door right now, you're not going to get recovery, even if you're not associated. There's many cases where people can't sue. Now it gets extended to, people always think about deaths and officer involved shootings, murders. That's where it always evolves to. But it fundamentally comes down to the case law, because it's not in law, it basically, every time that somebody brings a different kind of case to a local court or federal court, and it's not federal, it's I don't believe it's in federal law, but that says that, okay, well, in this case, the officer didn't violate. So from now on, somebody can't even bring a case that looks like that. It gets thrown out immediately.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, we've already understood that this is not an officer violating somebody's rights. So people are not being held criminally responsible for violating people's rights, and then they're not being civilly held responsible either, like with money. So people are basically, and it's not all officers, because some officers truly are like good people who want to help the community. When I'm scared and I see something that frightens me, I want to be able to call 911. But we should all be able to equally call 911 and not feel like nobody cares whether they mistreat you.
Right. Especially, yeah. I mean, I think so much of the defund the police argument was about the stuff we call 911 for, and how it ends up, like it takes a lot to think about. Like I think about Tatiana Jefferson, who, it was a wellness check, and she ends up, killed. I think about, just other stories that we hear, to the point that even something small, like I had somebody parked in my parking space in my apartment, and they were like, oh, you have to call the police and have the car ticketed and then get it towed. And I was like, I'm not calling the police on somebody, because in the event the cops show up and this gets escalated, like I'm not comfortable with that.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I think it's definitely becoming a situation where people are shying away from calling the police overall, because in the event they get there and act without impunity, like the bystander feels more responsibility for that than the officer does.
And to be honest, this Rittenhouse thing and just certain people in society wield the ability to call the police on people, and they feel comfortable calling the police. They use it as a weapon against people. Like, you better act right or I'm gonna call the police, because we know how they're going to react when they get here. So people are always living in fear. And now we set this standard now where people can go across the states, be like, oh, I think some kind of situation is about to pop off here. I go there, get into an altercation with somebody, shoot somebody. Then people see me shooting people and then say, oh, stop. Are you the person that shot somebody? They try to take you down and you get to kill more people. That's just law. Like, that's how the law works now. No, that's how the law works for some people.
Yeah. And I think we've seen, right? Like, the judge in the Rittenhouse case made it abundantly clear where he stood from the beginning. Everything from the not letting the prosecutors refer to the people who Rittenhouse killed as victims, to the way he spoke to prosecuting attorneys, the evidence he allowed and didn't allow. It was pretty clear that I feel like his mind was made up before the trial started. And that's how that's going to go. But I think, to circle back to our larger point about like moments for Democrats to capitalize on, or like realizing what gets your base moving, like some of the most important and fastest organizing that the left does is around criminal justice reform.
Yep.
Especially Black people. And so if we're going to either shy away from that or blanketly like reject it, then you can't be surprised when there's a reaction to that on election day.
Yeah. I mean, you can't tell people I'm taking you for granted, but run through a brick wall for me. Because also, like, Black people are the people who are experiencing these voter suppression tactics, who are legitimately afraid. They're driving everywhere. I don't know what was going on with the yard signs this year. I hate to make this, I don't want somebody to catch this and listen to this and be like, oh, Matt said if we had more yard signs, we'd have won. But when you're talking about 60,000 votes in 3 million casts, like, that's the kind of environment that you live in. And if you're living in Hampton Roads, Hampton, and you drive everywhere all day and all you see is Youngkin signs, you don't see any McCullough signs, you're like, oh, they're deep out here. I don't know. I might not want to put my yard sign out. I might not want to even go and knock doors, because it's like, oh, this Youngkin country. Oh, damn.
I mean, as a Falls Church was like driving through, you could see the signs. And I know that there's all this tension on the strategic side about signs, right? Signs aren't votes and this, that, and the third. But I do think people, like, especially in a year like this last year and a half of the pandemic, people want to feel like they're in community with others. And so if in my community there appears to be like this visibility on a particular issue, like that matters. And so people, like, a lot of people were already so about knocking doors or like opening the door because of COVID and things. And those signs matter because it implies a level of enthusiasm about votership. And that is what people said to me more than anything. Like, kind of in days leading up, I got some cautionary texts from some folks who were like, we feel like he's got momentum, and that's concerning.
He did have momentum.
And apparently the whole ticket did, right? Because Virginia is not a place where your lieutenant governor is on the same ticket as the governor, like in other places. But I don't think anybody could see a world where you get a Glenn Youngkin governor and you don't get that lieutenant governor. But the entire wave came in. So Democrats, I don't think, got any statewide office on election night.
No.
Yeah.
So.
But as we're transitioning actually into I Ain't Sorry, I wanted to know if there's anything professionally or personally about you that allows you to do the work that you do and something that you're unapologetic about.
Yeah. I think something that I'm unapologetic about is I feel like especially when you're a Black person that gets involved in working in this world, you show up and you have like a kind of a skin on, like a snake. Like, not
Mm.
to say we're being snakes, but like you don't show up as like your authentic self, and you feel when you show up somebody could be your junior, somebody could be somebody who
Mm.
literally just got at the organization, you've been at the organization for a long time, and you feel, people have called it recently, imposter syndrome. And I think that I've, over the last however long time, have really felt comfortable now, like understanding that the variety of my experiences, like being, even when if it was like moving around when I was a young person, or getting to go hunting, but then also literally seeing in the same week people get shot outside of where I was living back in Philadelphia afterwards. And
Mm.
so I was kind of feeling like I needed to fit into the mainstream for a period of time in order to, like, because it's easier. It's always easier to run with the wind at your back. But what I realize, and what I'm not sorry about, is the fact that, like, I haven't always had the same understandings that I have now. I haven't always wanted to do the same kind of policies, or work with the same kind of people. But when we show up, people need to see people who are real people, who they have something in common with.
Mm.
When we're trying to do politics with people, politics is about the people. And so, if we show up and think everybody has to, have gone to law school, or have, been president of your civic association in order to hold public office or whatever, then that is exactly why we have so much of our population, especially Democrats, who don't want to go out and vote, don't feel any attachment to this. Why, on a non-presidential election year, where you're blanketed with mail and emails and text messages and TV ads, when that goes away, people
Yeah.
don't feel any attachment to the system, because it doesn't want to be attached to you.
Right.
So that's what I'm not sorry about. Now, I've said things I disagree with now. That's how it works. Like, you move through misunderstandings and all that. And I think we have to explain ourselves so much more,
Oh
every
yeah.
time, everywhere. And I'm not sorry that I'm not going to explain. I'm
Mm.
bored. I'm gonna say, things haven't worked out always how I wanted them to, but that's how it goes.
Yeah. I also think, like, it sounds like you're unapologetic for growth. Like
Yeah.
I look at a lot of, particularly like white liberals, right, who have
Mhm.
been, I'm from Texas. I have a more conservative background. I've grown a lot in my like college and post college and graduate school life as far
Mhm.
as understanding these issues differently. And so, yeah, I cringe at Facebook statuses from 2010
Yes.
and 2011
Yes. Yes.
when I had a different understanding of things.
Yes.
And so, for people who want to, like, I guess, rip people apart for that, I'm like, well, congratulations for being right your entire life. I don't have much more for you than that, because I'm not going to stop growing,
Right.
because I think it's important for us to do. And I do think that all of us should at some point look back on 10, 15 years ago and be like, whew, I would do that differently. In the event you've been the same your whole life, I think that's a problem, no matter what side that puts you on of things.
And like, my thing is like, it's the continuation of privilege, because, like you said, the
Mhm.
demographic group who likes to do this the most, there are
Mhm.
others who like to do this, but this demographic group, you're trying to convince me that you've never said the N-word, that you don't listen to music, or you never called somebody's hair nappy, you
Mm.
never said something that was completely inappropriate that you wouldn't want printed on the front cover of New York Times. No. And the fact that you haven't, that's a good thing for you. But
Mhm.
don't try to be holier than thou, and ignore not just my growth, but like all of our growth. Like,
Right.
what people try to do for Kevin Hart. There's a difference between what's going on with Kevin Hart and what's going on with Dave Chappelle. And I think that
Mm.
people are going in different directions. I have a different understanding. Another person saying, no, this is my understanding, take it or leave it. Another
Right.
person saying, like, oh, okay, like, I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to get this. I get that maybe I've said something, but Yeah, so that's what I'm not sorry about because I
Yeah,
know who I
absolutely.
am.
And speaking of that, like what, if anything, is giving you hope for the future right now?
My son, to be honest, and I know that's a cheesy answer, but
No, go for it.
yeah, I mean, he just like their generation. We went to a Friendsgiving event last weekend, and the kids that were being brought there, they're all like these little light skinned, curly haired kids, with that, because so many people are having diverse marriages and stuff like that. And so at a certain point, whether or not like that's the direction you go, but your kid ends up, because I'm black, my wife's black, but my mom's white, so my kid is a little lighter, got curlier hair, even, and it will force that next generation to confront conversations and have more allies than you and I had when we were that
Mm,
age. And I already see it. Like when they send me pictures at my kids' daycare, I can see they're hanging out and they're playing. I'm sure that there's still going to be some level of that's still
yeah.
going to happen. But I do truly believe that it's generation by generation. So like a generation is dying off right now and a new generation's getting started. And I think that the
Mm,
future generations, although they're going to still have to deal with some ugly racism and ignorance,
sure.
I think that enough people now are starting to understand and feel empowered to speak out if they have yard signs out front.
Of course. As long as you know you have a few allies in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
before we wrap, let's make a little news. Are you going to run again?
I think people should stay tuned. I don't know. I,
Okay.
I I
Okay.
think I think people want me to. I think I
Okay.
was I think I was really damn good at it.
Okay.
But there's also a lot that I have to offer to the world. So do I run again?
Mm,
I'm not a fortune teller. Um,
okay.
but whoever would be on the other side of that, they would they would be dealing with somebody who's pretty hungry and
Okay.
pretty uh, unmoored from feeling like there are conventions to what goes on. I've been disabused of that idea. So if
Okay.
that were to happen, it wouldn't be a lot of fun for somebody else. But right now, I'm real. I love what I'm doing right now. Working with
Okay.
Chair Randall is she's even better than I thought, and I had a high opinion
Mm,
of her when she endorsed me. When I was running, I was like over the moon. But now coming to work with her every day, I'm legitimately in awe when like some of the stuff that she has to deal with and she has to move through. I mean, that's just being a black woman in America.
mm,
Um, that there's so much that y'all deal with that you deal with in silence, and
mm.
um, and she's not a silent person, but you just have to get through. You just can't let certain things, and so I think things happen for a reason, and where I'm at right now, I don't. Uh, I haven't decided that I want to do something else. So, but I could.
Okay. You very well could. So that is a good enough answer. Matt, I have enjoyed you so much today. If you have any closing thoughts, I'd love to hear them, along with how people can reach you in the event they want to see more or hear more about your work.
Yeah, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Politidope, Politidope. Same thing over on Instagram. Also, I have a sports podcast called Honorable Mention. I'm actually recorded a episode before I got on today. It's already up. So we had some people from Sports Illustrated, NBA TV, and all that. So you can find me there. So yeah, I'm not BSing you, Lauren. I got a lot going on,
You
and
do? I didn't know about the sports podcast. I thought you had a political podcast.
no, it's
Okay.
sports. It's sports. It's a lot of fun. So check it out.
That is cool. If you'll give me 1 second to wrap here. You just finished this episode of Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered. If you're looking for the show, you can find us at Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered on Facebook or Instagram. And if you're looking for me, You can find me at Lauren Zayu on Twitter and Instagram as well. I hope to see you there.